Hello, my name's Mike Power. I'm an addiction therapist in central London at a private hospital that specialises in mental health, eating disorders and addictions. Today I'm going to be exploring the topic of how to manage your drinking during the pandemic. So what exactly would cause a person to drink so much during the pandemic? Well, the most obvious that comes to my mind would be isolation, boredom, loneliness, depression, anxiety, fear of work, spending too much time with family members, and really feeling that need to escape. So the question is, do you feel that you're drinking too much? And how do you know that you're drinking too much? That is also quite a complicated question because that depends on the individual really. But the way I would gauge that, well, what are the consequences for you right now? How is it impacting your life? So are you oversleeping? Do you feel hungover every day? Are you getting withdrawal symptoms when you wake up in the morning? Or are you not functioning with your job? So these are all questions you want to ask yourself, and do you need to make a change? But let's have a look at the risks of drinking, because I think this is really important also. Drinking on a daily basis can affect the brain and the cognitive function. It can also affect the liver and create cirrhosis of the liver. Also, alcohol is very physically dependent, and if a person gets physically dependent on this, then it will need a medical detox. So it's really important before you start to make any changes to establish if you are physically dependent, then please don't abruptly stop. It's really important that you speak to your local drug and alcohol service or talk to your local doctor, because if you are dependent, then you will need a medical detox. However, in the meantime, it doesn't mean that you can't start to make some small changes. So you can start to reduce your alcohol use very slowly. So let's have a look at how you can make changes. So I think the first thing that a person needs to do is actually track how much you're drinking, because it becomes so habitual that actually I'm not even thinking about exactly how much I'm drinking. I'm just going to the fridge and pouring myself a glass and drinking it. So the first thing is just to slow it down, monitor exactly how much you're drinking on a daily basis, and then you can start to make some slow reductions. So doing what we call an alcohol diary, monitoring the alcohol diary, then reducing. My suggestion would be that you reduce. So if you're drinking wine, then you reduce by 1 glass of wine daily until you're down to just 1 glass of wine per day. Okay, it's also important to find ways to relax, even though it might make you feel that alcohol is making you calm and less stress and less anxiety. The fact is that alcohol makes you worse because it does affect your immune system. It's important to have alcohol-free days, and my suggestion would be don't drink them more than 3 days in a week. And if you could manage it, 1 day a week would be perfect. So maybe think about looking at low alcohol alternatives or alcohol-free beer. If you like the taste of alcohol, that's a good way to do it. The other important thing is actually to keep yourself busy. We can't just take alcohol out of the equation without putting something else in. Make sure you maintain good social connection. So, having looked at some of the causes or contributing factors to somebody drinking so much during the pandemic and some of the risks that are involved in heavy drinking, let's have a look at some of the tips in order to reduce your drinking. I think the important one is that you need to monitor your intake by keeping an alcohol diary on a daily basis. And the reason why I say this is because by keeping an alcohol diary, what we can do is see exactly how many units of alcohol we're drinking, and then we can reduce the units daily until we're down to a more sensible amount of drinking time. Ideally, you'd want to be drinking once a week, no more than 3 times a week. However, there is some other tips. So it would be unrealistic to think that if I'm drinking every day that I would just stop. I need to replace that with something. I can't just take alcohol out of the equation and expect myself not to drink. We need to replace it with an action, and preferably that action needs to be something that's enjoyable. It'll be very difficult for me to say what action that is because every individual is unique in their own thing, but it needs to be something fun and interesting. It could be something about learning a new class, it could be a hobby, it could be an online social support group, but something that's going to fill that time when you were drinking, to fill that gap in order to help you to reduce. The third thing that I think is really important, bearing in mind that I feel that isolation is a big contributing factor to why a person would be drinking so much. So then it would make sense that we need to build a strong social connection, and there's many ways that we can do that. We can draw on our existing social support, or maybe we can find a new social support online. One of the good things about the pandemic is there's lots of wonderful new social supports out there. Or if you feel like you're really struggling, you could go onto one of the online AA meetings where you'll actually get support from people that are struggling with drinking. But there's many options, and it's whatever is going to fit you that suits you best. The final thing that I'd like to say is I think it's really important that if we're going to set goals around stopping drinking, that we need to be accountable. We can be accountable to ourselves, but if we're accountable to a friend or a family member and they're checking up on us every day just to see how we're doing, it can really enhance our motivation to reduce our alcohol use. I would just like to say it's been my pleasure to be here today on behalf of SMB Men's Health. I will be here monthly, so please, if you feel like you have any questions, please email Joe and I'd be happy to answer them in the next segment.